Hi everyone, it's Katrina Jones here from Kendall Bailey. How are you all? So as promised, I'm officially live to answer all of the questions that you guys have sent me in regards to rent to rent. So just a tiny little bit of housekeeping before we get started. So first of all, if you're live, welcome. I've got a bunch of questions here that people have sent me in via email and messages. So I'll answer those first because they've got in there. If you're live and you have a question you want me to answer, then just type it out. And if I have time when I've finished all of these, of course, I'll answer your questions. Third of all, if you're watching this and it's not live, so you're maybe on YouTube through a link that you found somewhere, then even though it's over, I'm still really happy to answer all of your questions. So what I'll do is I'll just put a little link in the YouTube comments to my Facebook page, and if you want to send the message over to me with your question, then I'll just respond directly personally to you and get your question answered. So either way, we're going to get it answered. So I'm just going to jump in and just go straight off the bat and start answering these questions. So I've got them written down in case you wonder what I'm looking at down here. So the first question we've had in is, how do we pitch to agents? And this is one of my favorite questions, because people often think, oh my God, I'm so nervous. What am I going to say? Like, what if they catch me out? The beautiful thing about working with agents and pitching agents is that 95% of the things that you think you have to say, you don't. And 95% of the things that you think they're going to say, they don't. So our pitch to agents is incredibly simple. We basically say something along the lines of, look, we have a bunch of full-time working professionals here ready to move in, and what we really need is somewhere between a 4 to 6 bedroom house to rent out on quite a long-term basis, kind of like a company let. So what properties do you have on our books, and please can you help us, can we book in some viewings? Stop talking. That's it. You don't need to explain what your strategy is. You don't need to start banding around rent to rent this or guaranteed rent that, because it's just totally unnecessary. A company let is so similar to rent. It's where a company will rent a property long term, pay the rent every single month, and then they put their employees in it when they need to. What you're doing is basically exactly the same, except for rather than being your employees, they're employees from other companies in the area. So in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't make a difference to the agent or the landlord. And then on top of that, you're providing other incredible additional services that will blow both the landlord's mind and the letting agent's mind. So it's a win-win-win for everybody. So that is how you pitch the agents. Okay, so someone has asked, when taking over a property from a landlord, what if the property simply struggles to rent? Or if you have a 1 month void when you start your deal? Another great question. So the way to avoid this ever happening is to research your area properly from the very beginning. So if you research and there's definitely a demand, you're not going to come across the issue where it struggles to rent. If you have a property that is struggling to rent, you've taken it on in the wrong area. It's as simple as that. So researching your goldmine area to the point where you're so confident that I could rent this property all day, every day with my eyes shut, that's how you mitigate the fear of ever having it not rented out. And in terms of what if you have 1 month void when you just start? So we negotiate a 4-week rent-free period with every single landlord and agent we work with. It's one of our non-negotiables, because at the end of the day, we are guaranteeing their rent for 3 to 5 years. Totally unheard of. Like, that in itself should blow the landlord's mind. We're potentially investing our own capital into the property to bring it up to more of a high boutique kind of standard. Again, what agent or person on the planet puts their own money into someone else's asset? So again, landlord's mind is blown. And we take care of the maintenance, the tenants, we do the lot. So to say that in exchange for that, all we want is 4 weeks rent free while we actually refurbish your property for you at zero cost to yourself and do the advertising to put the tenants in, and you can then sit back for the next 3 to 5 years while the rent just rolls in. The landlords are like, yes, of course. So if you're struggling to get the rent-free period, then there's just something that you're missing. So you might be missing the confidence and the sheer belief of how unbelievable your service is, because if you're not 100% sure how great it is, then you're not going to explain it to the landlord in a way where they're going to fall off their chair. So you've got to really get how incredible your strategy is, and when you do, you'll have landlords that are just like mind blown. I'm in, here's the 4 weeks rent free, thank you. So we get at Kendall Bailey, we get landlords that have given us the month's rent free that will also handwrite us thank you cards or buy us champagne. We've sometimes had landlords in tears, which I don't mean to make people cry, but when I do, I think this is a good sign, right? They're so emotional about what we've done to their property. They've got no stress, they've got no concern. You know, when they're working with a normal letting agent, if the property's empty, then they're not getting the rent. This is an unbelievable service. So yeah, 4 weeks rent free, I think so. So that's that one. So this is the same kind of question. Someone said, if you have a contract with a landlord and you offer them a rent, but then you realise it's not bringing any money, would that not make a rope around your neck? Well, yes, it definitely would, 100%. It would be awful. So that's why you need to research your goldmine area, ensure there's a very, very high demand for people wanting to live in that exact area, and you just won't have a problem. So supply and demand is everything. Okay. Someone asked me quite a funny question, but I said that I would answer anything, so I'm going to answer it. Someone has said, why are you doing this if you've created financial freedom? And I thought, well, fair play. That is a very valid question. So Kendall Bailey, the rent-to-rent company, is the business that I founded in 2012-13. That has been hands-free. It's a very successful rent-to-rent portfolio that the team and the incredible company manager have been running without needing me for years now. And then Kendall Bailey Education, which is a separate company, which is part of the training, where we train and mentor people to build their own rent-to-rent companies to create that time of financial freedom, is separate. And the reason why I still do this, one of the main reasons, obviously, is that I love helping and supporting individuals to create that time of financial freedom. Yes, it's great to do another rent-to-rent, but when you've done a countless number, it's just another rent-to-rent. Whereas when you're personally supporting someone and they're like, oh my God, I just did my first ever one, I've replaced my income, or the day when they message me and they're like, Kat, I've handed in my notice, I'm quitting my job. It's like, yes, like that feeling is everything. And I've tried, trust me, I've tried to do nothing with my time, and there's only so much you can do for yourself before you realise life is so much better when you make things about other people and you're doing something productive. So I've chosen to continue to do the one thing that I love, to help as many people as I can. And of course there's a limit on that because I've only got so many hours in every day. But yeah, I really enjoy it and it's great to see people succeed. So great question. The next one is, how do you pay the first month's rent if the tenants haven't moved in? Well, we've just covered that in one of the other questions, so that's that. In order to research tenant demand, what is the best or most common way? Okay, so the best website on the planet that you can use for rent to rent is called Spare Room. And what you need to do is go onto Spare Room and go to advanced search, which should be on the home page. And you then type in your exact city or town, and then you put the filters in. You don't need to put in every single filter, but you need to just pop in there professional, working professional, because that's going to be your market. Our demographic is high-end working professional, which is how we make that margin and uplift in rent. And then you click a minimum of £450 to £500 a month rent, because you're going to need a slightly higher rent to make your margin. And then you search. And as long as there's over 75 to 100 people, there's demand. It's as simple as that. If you're in an area and there's like 8 people looking for a room, you're probably not going to be able to build a portfolio of 20 rent-to-rent properties, right? So you just need to make sure that the demand is there, and that's how you do it. If there isn't a demand, then just go to the closest town or the closest city to you. I wouldn't recommend investing more than an hour away if you can, and try and keep all of your properties close together, because at the end of the day you're running a business and you need to be on the ground for at least the first year until you've got your staff and your team in place, etc. And the further you have to drive, the bigger the ball ache. So keep it as close to home as you can. Okay, as I'm in a full-time job, how could I do rent to rent without spending too much time? Brilliant. Okay, so when it comes to rent, it's one of those things where it doesn't take 8 hours a day every day. It doesn't. That's why people love it so much. However, there is that initial stage, of course, where you need to spend your time setting it up. However, it's relatively minimal and you only have to do one thing at a time. So first of all, the only job you have is to find the property. So that means sending out letters, that doesn't take more than an hour, and calling agents, which, given the pitch you heard me do earlier, each conversation should take about 4 minutes. So even if you're calling 100 agents, it's not taking you more than a day or two. It took me 1 week to find our first rent-to-rent property. And when you've done that, job done. You can make those calls and send those letters of an evening, on your lunch break, on the weekend. It's completely up to you. Then when that's done, you do the refurbishment. If you need to do one, you don't have to. And that's something that you can easily manage yourself. If you're working, you manage it on your breaks, after work, on the weekend. A full refurb should never ever take more than 2 weeks anyway. And once you've done that, it's done. You don't have to do any of that again for that property. You tenant it. Tenants also have full-time jobs, so their ideal time to view is after work or on the weekend, so that's perfect. And when a property's set up, the only thing you really need to worry about for the first 6 months are little maintenance things. And if you set it up properly and do everything the right way, there really shouldn't be much maintenance at all. You'll have the odd teething problem, but if you've got a great maintenance man there to support you, again, it's not going to take you 8 hours a day. And that's it. That's the first one done. And then you just replicate. And just remember this, it's the short-term hard work for the long-term benefits. And me and my friends in Australia used to do the most grueling job in the world, but we had our dreams, and for us, for a lot of us, it was like personal growth, because it was really hardcore. And we used to say, we are willing to do today what most normal people aren't, so that we can live tomorrow how most normal people can't. And that's not saying anything against anyone that chooses to just have like a normal life where they go to work and they come home and they're with their family, because that's gorgeous, and I think most people love that. But if you are going to be an entrepreneur and you want to start your own business, you're going to have to step up a little bit and do things that most people wouldn't do. And that's what's going to make you the extra money and create that time and financial freedom. So I hope that came out nicely and that makes sense. So yeah, you've got that short term. For most people, to leave their jobs is between 3 to 5 properties. Each property will make a minimum of £600 a month, up to 800, a grand, maybe even 1,200. So just remember, it's only very, very short term, and you can do this. 75% plus of the hundreds and hundreds of people we've trained over the years that have created financial freedom, left their jobs, etc., they started the strategy while they were in their job. So don't stress about that. Even if you just do one and just see how it goes, I don't suggest you go out and sign 5. You know, you need to be responsible for your well-being, for still having time with your family, for not getting overwhelmed or like burnt out. But just test it. Even just starting the phone calls on your lunch breaks and evenings to just get a feel for how you're going with doing a little bit extra outside of your full-time job, and just take it step by step by step. And I know that you'll be fine. Okay. Well, thank you for my little love heart, whoever sent that. Okay, next question. Do you mind if I just quickly have a sip of my coffee? Thank you. Okay, so this is a really great question. Someone's asked how to decide where to practice your rent-to-rent pitch. You could say in the mirror, which might be awkward, but also they've said if you practice further away from your area, what about if the agent or the landlord says yes? So it's awesome that you've said that, because that means you know that when you're practicing you're probably going to be successful, which is a great sign for someone. So look, the pitch, the script we use is a sentence. I've said it at the very beginning of the video. And just to recap, in case you've only just joined us, when you're calling an agent, you just say, look, we've got a group of full-time working professionals here ready to move in, which is true. They're unlimited on the website that you're going to be using. And they're ready to move in now. What we're looking for is a house, maybe 4 to 6 person shared house that we can rent straight away for a relatively long period of time. So if you've got anything on your books, what can we view? Please, can you help us? It's a partnership. You're an agent's dream come true, because their job is to find tenants. Well, hello, you've already got all the tenants, so that gives them less work to do and they still get paid. So it is a win-win-win. So I would say, honestly, if you want to practice phoning people outside of your area, do it. And then if you get a meeting, then you could just call back and say, look, I really, really appreciate your willingness to help us. However, we've just found another property. Someone who we contacted before we contacted you has come back to us, and we just want to be fair in order of who we work with. Something like that. Or you could go on Facebook in the Kendall Bailey group and say, guys, I've got an agent in this city with a rent-to-rent ready to view, who wants it? And maybe you could even charge them, just saying. Okay, so the rent-to-rent Achilles heel. If your landlord decides not to continue or extend the term, and one of your tenants decides not to leave at the end of the agreement, how do you mitigate the cost that the landlord will quite rightly claim back from you? Right, so this is a really good time to raise a very common point when it comes to rent-to-rent and the questions I get asked. I get asked many questions on a very regular basis of what if this happens, what if that happens? And the questions that I get asked, like this one, arise if you haven't set up your rent-to-rent business properly. So by setting it up and doing it the way that Kendall Bailey do, the way that we teach, these things won't happen. Okay, so let me give you an example. So one of the things that a lot of people do is they'll look for rent-to-rents, and what they do is find residential properties. Hi Jay, how are you? Thank you so much. It would be so great to chat, absolutely. If you just want to head over to my website, there's a little link to book a call. So feel free to do that, or just drop me a private message and we'll book something in. Okay, speak soon. So they look for a residential property. That's the first big no-no. It's the most expensive, time-consuming, sorry to keep saying this, but ball-achy way to do it. And if you can, I mean, we've got people that we've trained that do it, and I'm just like, hats off to you, kudos to you, because I really wouldn't choose to do it that way. What you want to do is look for a property that is already an existing shared house, because you don't need to worry about a whole bunch of stuff that you do need to worry about if you take on a resi. So when you take on a family home, you have to think about planning, licensing, the mortgage implications, because it won't have a HMO product on the mortgage. Quite often you're changing rooms, maybe putting up a stud wall. You've got to convince the landlord to change their property from a family house to a shared home, blah, blah, blah. There's just a lot to do. Whereas if you approach a landlord, they've already got a HMO. It's already on the right mortgage product. They've probably already got the licensing and planning in place, although you definitely need to triple check all those things. But it's really easy. You just replace their tenants with yours. Usually you take on their property empty and you'll be putting in your higher paying tenants, job done. So it's all part of our amazing service. But what we say to landlords is, listen, if you ever want your property back, you can have it with our tenants in situ, with all the furniture and with everything that we've done for it. But listen, here's the most important thing. In the 7 years that we've been running our business, and Kendall Bailey have taken on a lot of rent-to-rent properties, we have never, ever had one landlord say, can I have it back, please? Why would they? They gave it to you in the first place because they just wanted an easy life. They wanted regular money coming in every month, and you're doing a phenomenal job. You guarantee them as close to market rent as you can. If you're bending someone over a barrel and trying to negotiate a really low, crappy rent with them, yeah, they're going to want their property back, because after not long they're going to get resentful and think you're taking the mickey. So the way that we do it is we give the landlord as much as we can, as close to market rent, and often bang on, and then we rent it to the higher paying, full-time working professional market. So there's the margin. The landlords are super happy, the tenants are happy, the rooms are within their budget, but they're not just staying in an average student style house. They've got all the bills paid for, they've got a cleaner every week, they're like living the high life in this gorgeous house that's been done up really nicely. So it's a win-win for everyone. So if you're looking for existing HMOs, you're providing such a great service, the landlord is literally like living their dream in terms of their investment, and you offer to give the property back full of tenants, that's not going to be a problem. And then the likelihood that they do want it back, then they want it back empty, then every person refuses to leave, is so unlikely. I can almost guarantee that if you set it up properly, it's never going to happen. And if it does, at the end of the day, landlords are great. You know, we've got a great relationship with landlords, and we've had to negotiate a few points with them. They're humans, they understand. The AST is between the landlord and the tenant, and your agreement is between yourself and the landlord. So whether you put something in the agreement to say, if they want their property back, they have it with all the amazing tenants in or whatever, you can talk to the landlord about that. But the bottom line is, it's never happened to us, and if you set it up properly, it should never happen to you. Herbert, hi, how are you doing? The name of the website, so if you go www. and then it's Katrina Jones, all one word, .uk. I know it's different, there's no .co, there's no .com, it's just .uk. Okie dokie. Right, another great question. How do you persuade a tired landlord that he or she needs to spend X amount on their property in order for you to achieve a reasonable rent? And if you agree to cover the costs of the refurb, how do you explain the term must be sufficient to be financially viable? Brilliant. First of all, you don't need to explain anything to the landlord. It's not your job to explain that the term needs to be financially viable and sufficient. You just tell the landlord, when we take a property on, we take it on for 3 to 5 years. And if you need to refurbish it, you just tell them, because of the amount we're investing in your property, this term needs to be a minimum of 4 years. Job done, that's it. There's never ever convincing or persuading with any landlords ever. You've got a phenomenal service, you kick ass, it blows people's minds, and you approach them as, this is what we do and this is how it's done. If it works for you, brilliant, you're going to have the most amazing 3 to 5 years with us as a landlord. If it doesn't work for you, great, no problem. Not every single person is going to want your service. There's no service out there in the world that every single person wants. So you just need to work your law of averages, which means understand out of X amount of landlords, this many will sign. Out of X amount of agents, this many will work with you. And then it's just a game. You call them up, you tell them what you do, and you know that every so often someone's going to say yes, and you just start building a business like that. So in terms of how you persuade them they need to spend X amount on their property, again, it's not really a persuasion thing. Landlords know. They're going to pretend they don't, and they might play dumb, but if a landlord's property is the pits, they know it. So you can just say something like, listen, we usually uplift the property with a slight light cosmetic refurb, and we may be able to guarantee you a little bit more, which you will be able to, if you're willing to put the money in to lift up the property. It's usually new carpet, new paints, etc. And then you can rest assured for the next 3 to 5 years plus that while your guaranteed rent is landing every month, you don't have to put a penny in. It's done up, it's gorgeous, your investment's set for another decade. Personally, we actually invest in the property. So we'll put a maximum of £5,000, ideally somewhere between 2.5 to 3.5 into a property. And we factor that in. So when I say you're making a minimum of £600 every month, that's after you've paid back the refurb costs. That's after tax, and that's after all expenses. So we factor the refurbishment in. But we've had landlords where we say, look, we're going to do the refurbishment, and they say, look, do you mind if we pay for that and you just give us a bit more rent, because it's really good for our tax position. So you'll be surprised. There's obviously common fears and themes that we think, oh my God, what about this, what about that? And we think that sometimes some people may think that landlords or agents are out to get us. They're greedy, like they're just not going to understand what we do, and it's just so far from the truth. Of course, there are people out there like that, but they're few and far between. Most people are willing to listen. They're really grateful for your amazing service. They're willing to work with you. We have landlords that take us out for coffee. We've had landlords invite us around and cook us dinner. Don't forget, these are humans. They're just like you and I, really nice people who have bought an investment for their retirement fund. They want it looked after the best way that they possibly can. You're a great person. You build a great relationship. It's a really awesome relationship that you build with the landlord. So don't go thinking that they're all hard-nosed and never going to agree to anything, because landlords are gorgeous. Okay, next question is, I'm well known to my local estate agents. How do I now try to persuade them that the benefits of rent to rent are good, when previously I've only ever bought for myself or introduced investors? Okay, this is a great question. And I know who you are, obviously we've spoken, so I'm just going to put this out there, and I don't want you to take offence, but I've got to nip this in the bud. You may not mean it like this, but this is really powerful for anyone watching. This word persuasion, you don't have to persuade anyone anything. Your service is insane. And I'm going to just explain why now. But persuading is not something you need to worry about. You don't need to put in all the effort and the energy and stress and sweat. It's such a great strategy. So this is what I would do if I was walking into an agent's or calling one of the agents where all I've ever done so far is purchase for myself or other people, is I would just say, I have a really great agent. One of my favourite agents in my area is Emma. So Emma, if you're watching, I hope you don't mind me mentioning you, but I would just say to her, Emma, look, I know I've always purchased properties, and you know I've got an awesome track record with working with investors and stuff like that, but I've just founded a brand new company. It is incredible, and I would so love to work with you on it, because it's going to be a massive win-win for both of us. I'm only going to be able to work with a select number of agents in this city, because as you know, it's just me, so I've only got the capacity to take on so many properties with the thing I'm about to do. But I'd love you to be one of our trusted partners, because whoever does work with us, we're going to give them more money and they're going to have less work to do. So let me tell you what it is. Basically, we've got a never-ending list of full-time working professionals that need houses, and we're looking for 4 to 6 bedroom properties to rent on a long-term basis, pretty much like a company let. We only have capacity to take on 10 of these properties a year, but we'll be doing all of the tenants searching. So for example, you'll still get paid the tenant fine fee because you found us, but you don't have to do any of the work because we bring the tenants. We'll be uplifting the landlord's property for them, so they're going to love you 10 times more. And the rent is guaranteed. So if you're on a management fee, the landlord's happy because their rent's guaranteed. You as an agent get your management fee guaranteed every single month, and we do most of the work. So how about it? What should we do? Have you got anything we can view? How do you want to go from here? And that's the type of conversation that you want to have. So hopefully that answers your question. Right. Direct to vendor letters and marketing are time consuming. How do I do sufficient due diligence on VAs in order to decide where to employ one? Okay, stop right there. So first things first, it's not very time consuming, not if you're doing it properly. Direct to vendor letters, I can't give you our biggest secret in the world on a Facebook Live, I'm afraid, But let me just tell you that HMOs are the type of properties you're looking for. And we have a way of finding every HMO owner's name and address in your entire city. And we have a special website, which is one of our dreams, where you upload that spreadsheet, you upload your letter template, and the website will mail merge every single landlord's address with the letter and send it out to them for you, sorry. So it's a fully merged, posted, licked, sealed, sent service without you really doing anything. It takes about an hour. So you don't, by the time you've hired and trained a VA, you could have done it yourself 5 times over, so don't. And when it comes to talking to agents and having those conversations, again, it doesn't take much time. You've heard the pitch twice now. It takes 1 minute on the telephone, and you want to be the one doing this, because no one is going to have the confidence, the belief, the passion, the integrity with making the calls and doing the best job as you are. So from day one, you absolutely have to be the one finding properties. And I know why you've asked this question, because you have done purchasing, haven't you? You've said it in your question before. You've bought it for yourself or for investors. Listen, I promise it doesn't take that much time. I've done marketing and direct to vendor for purchasing, and my God, that was a ball ache. This is like a million worlds apart. It's so simple, it's so easy, and it's so quick. So don't waste time hiring people and paying anyone else. Master every single aspect of this business before you train someone else to do it, because you can't manage something that you haven't really mastered yourself, because you don't know exactly what they're doing and what works and what doesn't. Okay. Oh, short and sweet question. What is the best and simplest bookkeeping software? Xero is the best. Xero. There are a bunch of others, but I love Xero. You link it to your business bank accounts and every transaction automatically feeds through. It's simple and pretty, which is something I like looking at the systems and the software that I use. I don't like it to look clunky and unsexy. So Xero's beautiful. Easy, simple, loads of online tutorial videos. So yeah, Xero all the way. And this is the last question, guys. So if anyone's watching and you want to type a question, feel free. When do you test the idea of a purchase lease option with the landlord? At the initial pitch or after the first review? It's completely up to you. I've purchased rent-to-rents because I signed a lease option on the same day as I signed a rent-to-rent contract. And then I've purchased rent-to-rents because I've literally just said to someone, look, let's sign the rent-to-rent deal, and PS, if you ever want to sell it, call me first because I'll probably buy it. I've just got one completing this week actually through doing exactly that. So it's up to you. You choose completely. You're cool. So that's it, guys. They're all the questions that you've sent me through completely answered. I'm just going to check here. It doesn't look like anyone else is sending any questions, which is absolutely fine. So that's it. Unless any questions pop up, I'm done. And here's the thing. If you go away and then you think, oh, do you know what? There is a question I had for Kat. You're on my Facebook page now. Just chuck a like on it so you're connected with it. And then just send me a private message and I'll get back to you with anything you need to know. Anything you want to ask me, I'll answer. And I'm really up for doing more Facebook Live. So get the questions coming and I'll get back to you. And that's it. So thanks to everyone that joined. It was great to see you, kind of. For everyone that asked a question, I hope I answered it. And Jay, I look forward to hearing from you soon. All right then, take care guys. Good luck. Have an awesome day. See you later. Bye.